Hi guys, my name is Victoria and I'm here today to do my October wrap-up. October wasn't a great reading month for me. I read 2 books, well 2 novels and 1 graphic novel, so I guess 3 books in total. Ta-da! And in my wrap-ups I like to go through the books in order that I read them in October, so I'm going to start with my first and only 5-star book that I read this month, and that was Scythe by Neal Shusterman. I have to say I adored this book. It was so fascinating and thought-provoking. By this time you've probably seen it a million other places on BookTube and maybe even watched a million different reviews on it, but I'll go ahead and throw mine in the ring as well. If you haven't heard about this book, it is about a future world in which we have learned how to eradicate death. No one dies naturally anymore. Not that you can't die, you can still die, just no one dies by natural causes. And so what society had to do to deal with overpopulation that would inevitably be a problem in a society where no one dies is they designated people to glean other people, and those people are called scythes. Scythes are allowed to take other human lives, and that is their job, that is their full-time job, literally. And scythes have a set of rules that they follow, or more like a moral code that they follow. And so one of the things that is ideal for a scythe is a scythe should be someone who never wanted to be a scythe, because if you actually enjoy killing, then you know, that kind of makes you a murderer, and it would make you maybe do some bad things. There's so many amazing and fascinating concepts in this book. The scythe world is very different from the real world. Our main protagonist, Citra, is kind of chosen to be a scythe apprentice, of course against her will, and we find out a little bit more behind the scenes about what it's like to be a scythe and all of the politics that are in the scythe world. And you learn throughout the book that not all scythes really uphold the moral code that they're supposed to uphold. I thought this was a really fascinating book. There's so many really interesting questions that are brought up. In a world where death is eradicated, a lot would change, and morality even, and it brings up a lot of questions of the human existence and why our morals are what they are and why they're in place, and how would that change if no one ever died. And then there's also kind of a cloud god kind of thing called the Thunderhead, and the Thunderhead also is kind of like a giant Siri in the sky, and you can ask it questions if you're a normal person, and it kind of can help you like guide you through life a little bit. Unless you're a scythe, it does not interfere with scythe matters. And I suppose the next book, Thunderhead, which I picked up a copy, will go into more about the Thunderhead, because the Thunderhead's a really interesting concept that is just kind of brushed across a little bit on the surface level in Scythe, but not super deep. There were a few plot holes, I felt like, or a few things that seemed kind of unbelievable, but I don't know, it was so much fun to read. I decided to kind of look over those things, and I think it's a 5-star book for me. It's one that I would definitely read again. It's one that I would definitely recommend, and I can't wait to pick up Thunderhead, which you can see behind me right there. I was hoping it would live up to the hype, and it does. So, I can highly recommend Scythe. Go read it. The next book that I picked up was a graphic novel, and that is Persepolis, The Story of a Childhood by Marjane Satrapi. I'm gonna be a little bit of an unpopular opinion probably with this book. I rated it 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. The reason for that is just because I felt like the format didn't totally work for me. Now, that's not to say this was a bad book at all. It was really interesting. That being said, I did feel like the graphic novel format didn't really allow me to get as much information as I would have wanted. And even going into her life and kind of seeing day-to-day things, I never felt like I had enough information, and every little snippet of her story, I just wanted more. I wanted it to be expanded upon a little bit more, and I think it's just the format of a graphic novel that doesn't allow for that. That being said, some people really raved about this and gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and that's why I picked it up. For me, I think the graphic novel part of it was what didn't work for me. However, it's definitely worth picking up if you're interested in it. I think it's a good introduction to the topic if you don't really know anything about it. But at the same time, I felt like I wanted more. I wanted more information. There's some really heartbreaking things in here about the things that Marjane Satrapi witnessed as a little girl, and things that happened to family friends of hers, and killings and all kinds of terrible things that were happening in her country. But you also see the day-to-day, the average things that are happening, a day in the life of an Iranian. There's also an interesting comparison of her home life and public life, and how her parents had to act a certain way and uphold certain views in public, and behind closed doors they had some different views. I don't feel like I'm explaining this very well. It's because it's kind of complicated, and the culture of Iran is so deep and vast and fascinating. You just have to try it out for yourself. I do feel like I want more information. I want to learn more about the country. I want to learn more about the political ideology and the history that is behind the country. I definitely feel like this just whet my appetite. The final book that I read was Dracula by Bram Stoker, and I really wanted to like this more. I'm so sad that I didn't enjoy it as much. I didn't realize how slow moving it was when I picked it up. I thought it was gonna be more fast paced. And so I ended up rating this 3 out of 5 stars as well. It's not a bad book by any means. It's worth picking up. You know, if you want to read all your classics, definitely read it. But the beginning was really interesting. There was some really dark, scary things that happened. You meet Dracula in the beginning, and then he goes away for the rest of the book until like the last, I don't know, last quarter of the book, maybe he comes back, and it was just so disappointing. The rest of the book, you're following these characters who are writing in their journal or writing letters back and forth to each other, and the format wasn't what got me. It was just the rambling. There's a lot of male characters in this book that honestly I would get them confused, and I wouldn't remember who was who. And there's a couple female characters who, one of them is kind of a, you know, typical fainting Victorian character, and the other one is a really strong female character, but the men just kind of keep putting her down in different ways. And it's kind of sad because I remember one part of the book, they're telling her, or they're talking about this character Mina. She's the strong female character, and they're saying, oh, she's such a unique, amazing woman because she has the mind of a man. So because she has the brain of a man, she's so smart. And it's just, you know, it's just annoying to me. And there's just a lot of that happening. There's just a lot of chauvinism and sexism happening in this book. So I didn't enjoy that part of it. But, you know, it's a product of its time, so you can expect some of that. But there's kind of a lot. So if you're willing to kind of put up with the whole middle of the book being not incredibly interesting and not very much happens, but a lot happens at the beginning and a lot happens at the end, and there's some truly terrifying moments. There's some very scary passages that were very unsettling and alarming, and Bram Stoker is definitely a horror master, and this is definitely a masterpiece of horror. For its time, it's really quite interesting. So yeah, I can't fully recommend Dracula as a great classic to read, because for me, it just meandered around. Didn't really go anywhere for about 200 pages. However, I'm definitely glad I read it in October, and I finished it actually around Halloween. Did I finish it on Halloween? I think I did. I think I finished it on Halloween night. So it was definitely a good atmospheric read for this time of year. So I would definitely try to read it around October to just get you in the mood for Halloween. So there you have it. Those are my 3 books that I read in October, and I just realized apparently our theme was red books. That was not planned. That was not intentional at all, but it happened. We read only red books this month. Let me know what you read this month, and let me know if you read any of these red books. I'd be curious to know if you have some similar thoughts to me or some different thoughts about these books. Maybe Dracula is your favorite book of all time, and I just bashed it. I hope you're having a great day, a great week, a great month, wherever you are in the world, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye.